Now back to the show. This is The Law Show on CL 650.
I'm Zach Spencer, The Law Show here on CL 650, and we're breaking down what it takes when you're going through the end of a relationship. And we have our guest here from McQuarrieHunter in Surrey. David Halkett is a partner, and Sarah Morse is an associate, and we're talking about money. And now, would you rank that, Sarah, as number one or number two on any couple coming to an end? Kids and money, right?
Definitely, yeah. Because the financial repercussions of separation and divorce are potentially huge.
And is it number one and two? Is it?
Oh yeah, for sure. Kids are more emotional.
Mm-hmm.
The money, though, is what usually often takes a little longer to deal with.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Because we always hear these stories where it's all about who's going to get custody of kids, but you're saying money is the sticky wicket, as they say.
What happens is money flows from where the children live too.
Yeah.
And when I first started, children often generally would go with the mom. That was 20-something years ago. Now it's more of an equal division of the time. So money becomes a bigger issue, is who's going to pay for what.
Mm-hmm.
The children often, people don't want to have someone older than me who is a judge determining where their children should be. They're getting a little bit better in determining where the children should be.
So the parents can do it on their own.
Yeah, that's happening a lot. We've agreed that the kids are going to be 3 days with me or 4 with them, and once the kids get past 12, so even like my son's age, if my wife and I were to separate, he could pretty well choose where he wanted to live.
Well, there's a joke about that. You've heard the joke, right?
Probably.
All right. So there's Johnny. He's in court, and the judge, will take a little sidestep here, says to Johnny, who do you want to live with? Your mom? No, my mom beats me. Do you want to live with your dad? No, my dad beats me. Well, who do you want to live with? The Toronto Maple Leafs, because they can't beat anybody.
I've heard that one. Yeah. I've heard that one. Yeah, I've heard that one. Although it applies to my Canadians these days too. So.
Yeah, and the Canucks, so they're all in the same boat. So yeah, the money flows with the children, right?
Exactly.
And so when you're older, and your children are grown, we're talking about pensions in the first part of the show, and now RRSP. So you kind of take that out of the mix, right?
Yeah.
So does the money become more important when you're getting closer to retirement or retirement age?
Well, it does to some extent, because often by that time they're either getting ready to downsize their home and sell it, or it's just how am I going to take care of myself for the next 20 or 30 years? In the old days, we didn't have to worry about RSPs because people died by the time they were 70 or 75.
Yeah, they gave you the gold watch, and I think in the in the 50s you were only expected to live 7 years or something.
Exactly. So now people live until they're 85 and 90, and so the money becomes a bigger issue down the road, because once both parties are retired, there's likely no spousal support being paid. It's just you live off the assets you have
and managing it.
Exactly.
And how you don't want to run out. The worst thing is having more years and less money.
Yeah,
you want to have it
exactly
the full distance. So how do you, when you're in this negotiation, look at RRSPs? You would think it's pretty simple. It's just right down the middle. You split it up. But is it that simple?
Usually it is, depending on whether or not someone brought them into the relationship, and you can prove that for the exclusion that we talked about last show. But normally what you do is you say, okay, mom has 150,000 RSPs, dad has 300. They're all family property. We'll assume that they're all family property. You add the two up and make sure they have the same amount. And there's under the Income Tax Act, you can do a spousal rollover, and there's no tax payable. So I would just, in effect, if Sarah had the 150, I had 300, I would basically transfer 75,000 from my RSPs to hers by way of a spousal rollover, and there'd be no tax.
My brother's a school teacher, and so is his wife. And they lament the fact that because they pay so much in their union dues and they contribute to the pension, that goes against what they can contribute for their RRSPs. So they say we're not allowed to invest separately outside of our RRSPs. They have the tax-free savings account now, but that's something new. That we get back into the pension thing again. So it's easier, obviously, to just say, okay, I'm a teacher and you're not, so I've contributed to my RSPs and you've contributed to your pension. Are they all looked at the same way?
No, because your RSP is basically just a defined contribution. It's what you have, right? Whereas the pension is a defined benefit, which can be worth a lot more. So, I've had people in the past say, well, my pension's worth 89,000 and the RSPs are worth 89, so we'll just call them even. It's like, well, not quite, because the pension can be worth $360,000 if you use my rule of thumb of multiplying it by 4. So you can do a combination that you take less of the pension and the other keeps the RSPs, but they are treated differently. The pensions have their own specific portion of the Family Law Act. It's Part 6. RSPs are under Part 5, which is just a normal asset.
All right. So what else can you tell people about RSPs and going through this situation?
Well, keep track of whatever statements you can. If you brought them into the relationship, Sarah,
Yeah, I think that's one of the biggest things is the paper trail. Again, it's knowing what assets you have at the start of a relationship if you're bringing something in, and making sure you just have those documents available. And if you're leaving a relationship, get those documents. Get copies of all of your documents. There's nothing worse than trying to track those down.
I have a shoebox that you end up going through, right?
Yeah, and that's often the case, and often one spouse may not even know what the other spouse has, and there is always that fear that they're not going to disclose it. So information is always your best asset, is knowing what there is out there.
I've got an interesting question for you, because I always find it interesting when you talk to other couples about how they run their finances. Because in our house, it's one bank account. It's one credit card. We have a shared credit card, and we have one bank account, and all of the money goes into that bank account.
Not the case anymore.
So how common is that? I mean, we hear all the time, well, I'm going to Las Vegas because I have money in. I just, for me, it seems foreign, but for a lot of people, it's this is mine and this is mine, and the other doesn't even know what the other one has.
I think it depends on the age of the clients we're seeing, because I have a large portion of clients who are women in their 50s. A lot of them not aware of what all the assets are. And
because
very much
would that be that the husband
combined,
did the husband did all the finance?
Yeah, everything in the husband's name, everything is combined, one account. Whereas a lot of then I have a whole section of other clients where it is very much sort of the newer way of doing things is you have one joint account for your household expenses, and each person deposits money into it. But I would say, and I know that this probably going to come across a little bit sexist, but or maybe it's just educated. A lot of the women that I associate with very much want their own money. They don't want to have to count for buying that new pair of Prada shoes and that sort of thing. So it is having those separate accounts that you can spend on what you want, as long as there's that joint pool of money. So I think that is definitely, I see as more the norm now with my clients.
Yeah.
They'll just interject. The ironic thing is, if you buy the Jimmy Choo shoes or the Prada shoes, you're still taking the money away from what you could potentially buy. So at the end of the day, so I see what you're saying is I'm old school and everything goes into one account, but my wife is fully aware of what's in there and can check out the bank account at any time. But this separate thing is so you're saying people are hiding things?
No, I think it's
because you don't want to find out that someone's got a huge debt that they maybe didn't tell you about.
Yeah, no, that's true, and that's happened in some of my cases where one has spent a lot and run up credit cards, and then of course their family debts because they were incurred during the relationship. For me personally, all my accounts we're all joint, but that's just so if one of us died, we don't have to worry about going through probate and such, right? I have one account that basically is mine. My wife has one that's hers, and then the rest we just kind of join together. But she knows everything that I have, and it's becoming rarer that someone's coming in and not knowing what assets the other has. When I first started, there was often wives came in and had no idea.
And you're still seeing that with a lot of the women in their 50s. I find that is sometimes still the norm.
And it's scary from me myself when I act for someone in that situation, because I'm dependent on the other side to disclose what he or she has, and if the wife or the husband that I act for doesn't know what the other has, they won't be able to tell me whether or not
to go find it.
Their financial statement is wrong.
And can people hide those things?
People have tried, for sure, and they've put them in offshore and such like that. And if wife doesn't know, so sometimes what you do is you can look at the credit card statements. Like say, for example, you see on a credit card statement a huge bill from a jewelry store, and the wife says, "I never got that piece of jewelry." It was bought for someone else, and then it gets you down the trail of maybe the money's been transferred to new girlfriend or something. And that's happened before.
I saw a great Valentine's, and it was a woman walking into the house, and the house is filled with roses, and it says, "Oh, he bought another car."
Nice. Yeah. Yeah.
Because you get those surprises. Well,
Yep.
what's this Corvette doing in the driveway? We didn't agree on that, but there you go. You have the
Yeah.
separate accounts.
Yeah.
Somebody says,
Yeah.
"Well, that's what I want to spend my money on."
Exactly.
Yeah, that's a hard one. Back to the beginning. We talked about this in the previous show. When you're starting out the relationship, the financial literacy of both parties is tricky because somebody's good at saving and the other one has $10,000 on their credit card.
Yeah.
I think you need to have that conversation and figure out how you're going to do that and acknowledge that maybe one person is better than the other and figure out how you're going to make that work as a couple. I think that's going to avoid some of these messy situations that we end up dealing with.
All right. Lots to talk about, I tell you. So I'm old school, having one bank account.
You're old school.
Are you? You're. I don't have. We have a business account, and that's interesting. So I'm feeling old today. All right, we are talking about the breakdown of relationships and what you need to think about RSPs, pensions, what have you. And we're speaking with David Halkett from McQuarrieHunter and Sarah Morse, and we'll continue the conversation next on the Law Show right here on CL 650.
There's more of the show still ahead. This is The Law Show on CL 650.